her every day in photos. Green, majestic, towering over New York Harbor. But what if I told you that the Statue of Liberty you know today is nothing like what she looked like when she first arrived in America? In fact, Lady Liberty wasn't green at all. She was the color of a shiny penny, a brilliant, gleaming copper brown that dazzled anyone who laid eyes on her. And the story of how she transformed from that radiant bronze goddess into the green icon we recognize today is far more fascinating than you could ever imagine. Let's go back to 1865. The American Civil War has just ended, and across the Atlantic Ocean in France, a brilliant sculptor named Frederic Auguste Bartholdi is having dinner with influential French abolitionists and Republican thinkers. At this dinner party, historian Edward de Labalette proposes an audacious idea. What if France gifted America a monument celebrating freedom and the end of slavery? This wasn't just about friendship between nations, it was a political statement. France itself was struggling under Napoleon III's authoritarian regime, and these liberal intellectuals saw America's experiment with democracy as a beacon of hope. Bartholdi became obsessed with this vision. For years, he sketched and refined his concept. But here's what most people don't know. The Statue of Liberty was originally intended for Egypt, not America. Yes, you heard that right. Bartholdi had designed a massive statue called Egypt, carrying the light to Asia, to stand at the entrance of the Suez Canal. When Egypt rejected the proposal as too expensive, Bartholdi simply recycled his design, gave her a torch instead of a lamp, added broken chains at her feet, and rebranded her as Liberty Enlightening the World. By 1875, the project was officially underway. Bartholdi enlisted the help of Gustave Eiffel, yes, the same engineer who would later build the Eiffel Tower, to design the internal iron framework. The statue's exterior would be made of copper sheets, each just 2.4 millimeters thick, about the thickness of 2 pennies stacked together. They chose copper for several crucial reasons. It was relatively lightweight, malleable enough to be hammered into intricate shapes, and importantly, it was affordable enough to cover such a massive structure that would stand 151 feet tall. When the statue was completed in Paris in 1884, she was absolutely breathtaking. Historical accounts describe her as having a reddish-brown, or bronze, appearance that gleamed brilliantly in the sunlight. Contemporary French newspapers called her La Belle Dame de Quiver, the beautiful lady of copper. Parisians flocked to see her, assembled in a courtyard, where she towered over the surrounding buildings. Imagine a 225-ton sculpture the color of a brand new penny, with light dancing off every fold of her robes, every detail of her crown's 7 spikes representing the 7 continents and 7 seas. The statue was so impressive that the French delayed shipping her to America for over a year. Partly because the Americans hadn't finished building the pedestal, and partly because she had become a tourist attraction in Paris. When she was finally disassembled into 350 individual pieces, packed into 214 crates, and shipped across the Atlantic on the French frigate Azir in 1885, she represented not just a gift, but a symbol of Franco-American friendship forged through revolution and the struggle for liberty. When those copper sheets were reassembled on Bedloe's Island, now Liberty Island in New York Harbor, and the statue was unveiled on October 28, 1886, witnesses described an almost surreal scene. Through the fog and rain of that dedication day, Lady Liberty appeared as a figure of burnished copper, her metallic sheen visible even in poor weather. President Grover Cleveland declared, "We will not forget that Liberty has here made her home." But what nobody at that ceremony realized was that they were witnessing a version of the statue that would never exist again in exactly that form. Here's where chemistry becomes destiny. Copper is a reactive metal. When exposed to oxygen, moisture, and the salty sea air of New York Harbor, it begins a process called oxidation. At first, the copper turned a darker brown, almost chocolate-colored. Then, something remarkable started happening. A green-blue patina began forming on the surface. This patina is copper carbonate and copper sulfate, created through a complex chemical reaction. The copper atoms on the surface react with oxygen to form copper oxide. This then reacts with carbon dioxide from the air to create copper. carbonate giving that distinctive blue-green color. In coastal environments like New York Harbor, sulfur dioxide from industrial pollution, remember. This was the height of the industrial age, accelerated the process, adding copper sulfate to the mix and deepening the green hue. By 1900, just 14 years after her unveiling, Lady Liberty had developed noticeable green patches. Newspapers began commenting on the greening goddess. Some New Yorkers were alarmed, thinking the statue was deteriorating and dying. There were actually serious proposals to paint her, to strip away the patina, to restore her to her original copper glory. In 1906, the U.S. Congress seriously considered allocating $62,000 to repaint the entire statue. But here's the twist that saved her. Scientists stepped in and explained that the patina wasn't destroying the statue, it was protecting it. The green layer, typically about 0.005 inches thick, acts as a protective barrier that prevents the underlying copper from corroding further. It's nature's way of preserving the metal. Painting over it would actually trap moisture underneath and cause the copper to corrode faster. The patina was a blessing in disguise. ACT4, the Green Goddess, emerges 830-1100. By 1920, the transformation was essentially complete. Lady Liberty had fully transitioned from copper brown to the verdigris green we know today. This change happened to coincide with a crucial period in American history: the 1920s boom, increased immigration, and America's emergence as a global superpower after World War I. Millions of immigrants arriving at nearby Ellis Island between 1892 and 1954 saw not the Copper Lady of 1886, but the Green Guardian of the harbor. For them, green became the color of hope, of arrival, of a new beginning. What's truly fascinating is that this wasn't planned. Bartholdi never intended for his statue to be green. He died in 1904, just as the greening process was becoming noticeable. He never saw the final version of his masterpiece. Gustave Eiffel died in 1923, by which time the statue was fully green. A color he had never designed for but which had become permanent. The green Statue of Liberty became immortalized in American popular culture. It appeared on countless postcards, propaganda posters during World War II, in films, and eventually became one of the most photographed monuments on Earth. By the mid-20th century, suggesting that Lady Liberty had ever been any color other than green seemed absurd to most Americans. The green had become her identity. In 1984, a massive restoration project began in preparation for the statue centennial in 1986. French and American craftsmen worked together once again, this time to repair a century of wear. They replaced the iron armature bars that had corroded, installed a new torch. The original was damaged by sabotage in 1916, and now sits in the museum, and cleaned the interior. But they left the patina completely untouched. Why? Because removing it would have been catastrophic. Scientific analysis showed that the patina had reached a stable state. It was no longer actively forming or changing. The layer varied from teal to sea green to blue-green depending on local conditions and exposure. Removing it would expose fresh copper that would immediately begin oxidizing again, but in an uneven, blotchy way that would look terrible and offer less protection. Engineers determined that if you somehow stripped all the patina today and exposed the raw copper underneath, it would take another 25 to 30 years for a new patina to fully form, and during that time, the statue would be vulnerable to accelerated corrosion. The green patina that people once worried about? It's now the very thing keeping Lady Liberty standing strong. After nearly 140 years of exposure to harsh coastal weather, there's something poetically appropriate about the color change. When you think about it, Liberty herself is about transformation, transforming tyranny into freedom, fear into hope, strangers into citizens. The statue transformed from the color of wealth and metal. Copper was used in coins, industrial machinery, the very tools of commerce, into the color of life, nature, and renewal. Green represents growth, spring, new beginnings. It represents the very ideals that immigrants sought when they came to America. Artists and historians have noted that the green statue against blue sky and water creates a visual harmony that the copper version never could have achieved. The statue almost seems to emerge from the sea itself. Like a goddess of antiquity. This aesthetic accident became one of the most recognizable color schemes in the world. Torched gold, sea green, sky blue. It's on every tourist trinket, every art piece, every representation of New York City. But here's something that will blow your mind if you go to Paris today. You can see a quarter-scale replica of the Statue of Liberty on the Île aux Cygnes in the Seine River. It was installed in 1889. And it too has turned green, going through the exact same transformation as its big sister in New York. There's also a replica in Tokyo Bay, another in Las Vegas, and dozens more around the world. Almost all of them are now green. The copper era of Liberty statues is gone forever, except in photographs and historical records. So here's the truth you need to understand: every single person who has lived in the past 100 years has only known a green Statue of Liberty. Your grandparents saw her green. Your parents saw her green. You've only ever seen her green. There's no living human who remembers seeing her copper, except in historical photographs. An entire original aesthetic vision, Bartholdi's vision of a gleaming copper goddess, has been erased by chemistry and time. And yet, this mistake of nature created something more enduring than the original design. The patina that horrified people in 1900 is now the protective shield that ensures Lady Liberty will stand for centuries more. The green that was never intended became the icon. Sometimes, the universe has better plans than we do. Here's my question for you: if we had the technology to reverse the patina, to restore her to that original copper glory permanently, should we? Would you want to see Lady Liberty as she was meant to be, or has the green goddess earned her place in history as she is? That's the paradox of preservation. Sometimes, protecting something means accepting how it has changed. The Statue of Liberty stands today as a 305-foot-tall reminder that change is inevitable, that time transforms everything, and that sometimes what we become is even more powerful than what we were meant to be. She was built as copper but became immortal as green. And in that transformation lies a truth about America itself: a nation of transformations, of reinventions, of immigrants who came as one thing and became something new. Lady Liberty didn't just change color. She changed what color could mean.